from renewable energy. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of some of the aspects of this project that we think check those boxes. So I was introduced to the co-op by Sarah Lebhertz, who is the CFO for the Common Market in Frederick. We managed the redevelopment of the old Safeway store that they now occupy on 7th Street. It's a 50,000 square foot facility. Has about 28,000 square feet of retail space, and then the balance is warehouse and admin and basically back of house functions. So we began working with you guys right at the tail end of when we were trying to lease the firehouse in Lovettsville, and kind of when that began to go south, as John mentioned, he and I kind of joined forces and did an intense land search looking for some land to do a development opportunity on, and came across, it was one of those things that's obvious in that it's staring you right in the face. But we were poking all around and looking around, and finally one day I think we looked at each other and said, hey, how about maybe we should look into this property. So I contacted NVR and just happened to catch them on a good day, and they were very interested in selling, and I was able to negotiate a purchase contract, and we have this thing locked up. So it's 2.7 acres on the south side of the square. So if you see this, wanted to kind of give you this visual, so I know everybody knows where it is, but it kind of helps see what an amazing and prominent site this will be for the co-op. I'm really excited for you guys and excited for what we can do with this. So our goal in looking at the development of this land, there's obviously several goals. It has to make sense economically, of course. We want it to make sense for the co-op, because I really do feel like this is a partnership between the two of us in terms of putting this project together. You guys are our lead tenant, and we would not do this project unless you guys were committed to the space. So it really is a win-win, I think, for both of us. But our goal was to complement the architecture and the feel of downtown Lovettsville. Secondly, of course, we wanted to meet our own corporate sustainability goals. And third, we wanted to provide a welcoming, safe, and healthy environment for local business to support the needs of the community. So we began the process by looking at a 2018 study that the town of Lovettsville initiated. It should pop up on your screen here in a minute. They developed what they perceived as the highest and best use for this parcel that we now own. And so we looked at this, we read the report, we had several meetings with the mayor, town council, planning folks, to kind of make sure that our vision would align with what the community thought was the best use of the property. And some of the key elements are, one of the really neat things, obviously, orientation to the town square park, designing the site in a way that encourages pedestrian access. In other words, we don't want to have folks having to cross driveways. Of course, there are always sidewalks that have to be crossed, but trying to make it as pedestrian friendly and community friendly and inviting as we possibly can. And by the way, just kind of on a side note, is that when we do these sustainable projects, one of the key aspects is a educational component. We actually want to set up the site with some, I don't know if signage is the way we're going to achieve it, but we want to have, it's an educational opportunity to educate the community on how land can be used in a sustainable fashion where we're minimizing demands on energy and saving water resources and things like that. So that it's kind of almost like, imagine a walking trail type approach to educate folks on what we are trying to do on this site. So we took this concept, and it'll load here in a minute, and working with John and other folks, we developed this site plan, this site plan that you see on your screen. So if you'll notice, it's very similar to what the concept plan was that the town had prepared, in that we have 3 buildings, very similar orientations. Town Center Drive being on the north or the top of your screen, Hammond Drive on the south, Berlin Turnpike on the right. The 3 buildings that we are going to construct, building, for simplicity, we call them building A, B, and C. Building A will be the home for the co-op. The total building area is about 14,000 square feet. And that is on purpose, in that as we worked with you guys, we looked not only at the short-term requirements that you have, but also looking out to years ahead and what your growth potential might be. And we all felt that we would at least like to have 14,000 square feet available for the co-op to expand as your business grows. So that really set the size for that building A, and we're moving forward with that. Building B, which is facing directly on the square and Town Center Drive, is 6,000 square feet. And then building C is 3,000 square feet. But I'll tell you that of everything you see on the screen, building C is the building that's most in flux, in that, as you can see on the site plan, we have laid out a drive-through opportunity there. And I do want to make sure that everyone does understand that drive-throughs in the town of Lovettsville are permitted, but in terms of who can go into those buildings, that is restricted, meaning that we can't have a drive-through restaurant as the current ordinance reads, but we can have a drive-through bank, or we could have a drive-through pharmacy, and there's a couple other uses that we can serve with the drive-through. We had originally hoped that we could have, not a national fast food chain, but we could have some food service associated with this drive-through. But I'm really beginning to believe that is probably not what the town is looking for. And my style in business is I'm not here to upset anybody's apple cart. We have to make sure things make sense economically. But that building may change to be a 4,000 square foot building. In other words, basically the drive-through lane that's illustrated on this site plan may become part or an addition to that building. So that if we don't do the drive-through, then building C will become 4,000 square feet instead of 3,000 square feet. So that is the only building that's a little bit in flux right now, but we hope to pin that down here in the next couple weeks. But I don't want anyone to think that because that's in flux, that's holding up the overall design of this center. It is not. We are moving forward with the anticipation of breaking ground on this project in very early September of this year, with a scheduled construction of about 10 months. And then, of course, we'll have interior work that we'll need to do for the store so that you guys can be open for business by September of 22. Let me go ahead then and show you some footprints, building footprints, and some architectural renderings. John already shared the one rendering that we have of building A. but with that, we have sort of refined that a little bit more. You'll see a little bit more detail when it comes up on my screen. I wanted to start with the building footprint. This is building A, and you can see the space on the left end of the building is where the Lovettsville Co-op will begin its business journey, 7,000 square feet. And I can talk a little bit about some of the features of this particular space. And I'll start all the way on the far left. You'll see a dumpster enclosure, trash enclosure, which by the way, on this site, and we'll talk about this a little bit, we're also doing recycling, and we are very close to signing a deal with a guy who will do composting for us, which is very rare on a commercial scale, but we think we've come up, or he has a pretty good system where the composting is actually buried, and they bring a truck and they actually lift the container out and put a new container in, and it's a composting. It's a pretty exciting. It's new for commercial, but we're looking at doing that. But just for explanation's sake, the trash and recycling would be on the far left, and then as we move right on the screen is a loading dock for deliveries for the co-op, and that is sized to handle a full-size tractor trailer, and they can move in and out of that. And if you see the little squares to the left of that loading dock, that is actually a screen, and a visual screen and columns that support an awning that will cover this whole dumpster or loading area. And on that cover, on top of that covering, is where some of our solar panels will be installed, because we are going to have on-site solar for power generation. Kind of moving then along the front of the building, we have a couple opportunities for outdoor dining directly in front of the store. You can see we've created a pretty good sized space there where you see there's two more columns, but we also then have an outdoor dining opportunity to the right of where the main entrance is. So either of those are opportunities that we'll be working with you guys on going forward. And then there's the additional square footage off to the right, where we anticipate you guys growing, and that'll be fun to watch. But that was kind of why this building ended up at 14,000 square feet. Moving on, just so that you guys can see some renderings. This is a little more refined rendering of your building. We'll call it Building A for now. The top image is kind of a direct representation of the front elevation, showing your entrance. You see off to the far left, the covering over the loading dock area. That's all going to have solar panels on top of it, as well as the left side of the roof over the main entrance. That will all have solar panels. And by the way, the solar panels that we are integrating into this project are a new design that is installed like a skylight. If you can imagine how a skylight is installed, where instead of the solar panel being installed over a roof, shingles or a roof membrane, these are actually mounted directly to the roof sheathing, and then they are flashed into the roof system itself. So it's actually part of the roof itself. So it's a really cool system, and I'm pretty excited about it. The middle image is the north end of Building A. That's the space I'm hoping you guys will grow into. And then on the bottom image, that's the southern shot of this building. And there you can see more clearly the loading dock area and the shed roof above it. Let's look at building B, just so you can get a feel for the theme that we're carrying throughout the center. This is has both the building footprint on the upper left corner of your screen, and then various images of building B on the balance of your screen. And I will tell you that we've presented this to the town, mayor, and town council and planning commission, and I think everybody's very excited about the architecture. They're pleased that we want to try to reflect a European flair in what we're trying to do here, and I think it's gone over pretty well. So those are all the images I have. As I said, building C is a bit in flux right now, but that should be pinned down here in the next week or so, and I'll be happy to share those images as they come together. My last screen is just real quickly, I just wanted to highlight some of the sustainable features that we're building into this project. As far as site features are concerned, we were very careful to orient the buildings to encourage community interaction, walkability, both from town center and within the development itself. We also, and this is some nuance here, configured the building so that we were screening parking fields, loading areas, and the trash collection points. Building orientation also impacts the effectiveness of solar, so we made sure that was taken into consideration. Created landscape islands to minimize parking lot heat islands. In other words, we broke up the paved areas and actually are integrating pavers into the project too, light colored pavers in order to reduce heat island effect. We'll use native plants and trees exclusively, and we've designed the site with a rainwater harvesting system. We'll have 2 large cisterns, about 3,000 gallons each, and those cisterns, we'll talk about that in just a second, will be used both in the building and for landscape irrigation and things like that. LED lighting with the ability to have a zone shutdown on off hours. The neighbors appreciate that. Lower the light levels, and certainly we'll use a lot less energy when we shut down portions of the site lighting. And lastly, on the site, we have on-site recycling and composting that I touched on a minute ago. Building features-wise, on the right side of your screen, on-site solar power generation. And one of the keys to making a project sustainable is to reduce the demand that we put on our sources. So we use high-efficiency mechanical systems, LED lighting for water, low-flow plumbing fixtures, and then, as I touched on before, reusing collected rainwater for non-potable water demands. We always test the buildings for healthy building standards. That means you increase air changes beyond the code, and we use energy recovery systems. We'll also have skylights to bring natural light into the core of the building. And with locally sourced materials, use recycled materials, and we avoid what are called red list materials, all with the intention of reducing our carbon footprint. And then, of course, minimizing waste generation. Lastly, I wanted to really stress that, from a business perspective, we always prefer to use local material suppliers and subcontractors whenever we can. I will tell you that in trying to incorporate sustainable features into my projects, I am very frustrated because if I lived in Denmark, I could do some really cool stuff. But some of those materials and systems just haven't arrived here yet, or they're in Canada, or California is also a hotbed for this. So, but we're going to try to source this stuff as local as we can. And then lastly, and I think one of the most important things I wanted to say is that it is our intention, and I speak for my partners in this, that we will give preferential leasing to locally owned businesses. It's our intention to build a community retail center. And we are all committed to doing that. So we have already been contacted by some local businesses, and I'm going to include Leesburg, Purcellville, Waterford. Of course, in addition to Lovettsville, that to me is local. And folks have reached out to us and are very interested in the project, and we're really excited about it, given the fact we really have not done any heavy marketing yet. Lastly, I wanted to, it's been a bit of a road for you guys in terms of a few starts and stops, and I wanted to reassure you that both my partners and I have already made a substantial equity commitment to this project. We have a financing commitment in place from Middletown Valley Bank, is a bank that I'm using on several of my developments. That commitment is in place, and we have nothing at this point that is going to give us a red light in terms of getting this project off the ground. So really excited to move things forward, and we're very excited to be partnering with the Lovettsville Co-op to make this project a reality. John, I think that's about it.
Okay. I'm just
Wondering if I need to do anything. Okay, there you go.
Well, I turned you off, but I don't have the web sharing off yet. Ben, where are you?
I'm here somewhere, and I guess if you can make it so I can share my screen.
I was trying to find you.
I'm in the list.
Oh, I see you.
And of course, like all of these systems, I can see where I am on my screen, but I'm probably in a totally different place on your screen.
Probably. Okay, I'm making you the presenter.
Okay, great. And I will share my screen if I can figure out how to do this. Oh, yes, okay. Please close confidential windows. Well, we'll see about that. Okay. But that's not the screen I want to show. That's the screen I want to show. Great. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Ben Sandel. I am a consultant with Columinate. We are a shared services cooperative of consultants all over the country and in Canada, and we work pretty much exclusively with food co-ops. Actually, we work with other co-op sectors also. We work pretty much exclusively with cooperatives in a variety of sectors. And part of what I do is I help food co-ops raise money, raise capital for brand new stores like this, also expansion projects, renovation projects, additional stores. And I will just note too that I was the board president of Friendly City Food Co-op, which is just down the road from you all in Harrisonburg, Virginia. That was during the entire period where we were in development and building our store. And it opened 10 years ago this coming June, and it is currently expanding. So looking at the site plans here and the potential for expansion is so exciting and great to see. This is one of the most beautiful and thoughtful plans I've seen in a long time for a new co-op. Friendly City is almost at the end of its expansion project to add another almost 5,000 square feet to the store. That co-op was very lucky to be able to do that. It's great to see expansion potential already designed in. So I'm going to talk to you about this thing that co-ops all over the country do, which is to raise money from the owners, which is kind of an odd, unusual thing for us to do. You know, if you think about it, like, oops, did I just stop sharing my screen? No? Okay, good, great. If you think about it, you know, there's not that many businesses that would go to a huge number of people and say, hey, we would like as many of you as possible to, you know, to help us with this process. Okay, now how do I get back to seeing my own shared screen? There we go. But co-ops do it routinely. And part of why we do it is because we are able to. Cooperative businesses in the US have certain rules and regulations and exemptions that allow us to raise the money in this way. Because, you know, if you think about it, if we were a partnership of two people who wanted to open this business, it would certainly be expected that we would take some of our own personal resources, our own capital, potentially our houses, other things, and we would use those as part of the financing for the business. Well, cooperatives, because all the owners own the business equally and collectively, it doesn't usually work that way. We don't have a couple owners who are going to be putting in the substantial amount. Plus, grocery stores are expensive businesses to get off the ground. So we have the ability to raise money through these private offerings without having to do federal filings for them. It's a great benefit of being a cooperative business in the US. In addition to that, we think it's a really great thing to do. And usually we have to do it because we couldn't raise all of this money cost effectively through banks and credit unions. Usually, well, in this program you're going to see in a minute or two, we can pay you substantially better than what you would get in a similar size certificate of deposit or money market account, while it still costs the co-op far less than it would to borrow this money from a commercial lender. So it's a win-win situation in that regard. It saves the co-op money and it puts more money back in your hands, keeps the money local, keeps it circulating through the community, which is part of what co-ops are about. It also works really well. So here are some co-ops around the country that I have worked with in one way or another, and with the amounts that they raised. So you can see that at $1.6 million, which is the goal for your capital campaign, actually that's a reasonably modest campaign compared to a lot of these here. And it's one that, yes?
We're not seeing that slide.
Not at all?
No, you're still on my stuff.
Okay, that's a problem. Let me see here. So you didn't see, okay. I wonder why. Let's see. I'm just seeing if I can do a little to make my, gee.
Let
me try this one more time here. Okay. Yeah, do you have some advice?
Try.
I do. On the left, click on the number of the slide that you want to show us.
Ah, okay. So it doesn't want me to be in. Okay, so do you see a slide now? Why do co-ops raise money from owners?
Yes.
You do? Okay. So this works, my apologies. This works a little differently than Zoom does. And I'm a kind of more familiar, more accustomed to Zoom, but as long as you're seeing it, that's great. So then this was the next one I wanted to show you, which hopefully now you're seeing the logos and pictures of some other co-ops around the country. Okay, great. So now I know it's working. So, you know, our friends in Fredericksburg across the state raised $2.6 million in their owner capital campaign. Astoria in Oregon, $1.5 million. Assabet Co-op is on its way to a $2 million capital campaign, but they've raised $1.5 million so far. They're in Massachusetts. And you can see others, including your neighbor Common Market, have also raised that. Friendly City down here in Harrisonburg, for our original, 10 years ago, things cost a little less, and we raised, we raised 1.2, almost $1.3 million from owners, and we've raised another $1 million for the expansion. So this is the capital campaigns are a common way for co-ops to help build the capital they need to be successful. And, it's also, I would note, during any time in history, but I think now more than ever, it's really great to be able to support a more cooperative economy, to be able to put our money into a local institution that exists to serve us. And, certainly it has been well and carefully planned so that it will be a profitable institution. And when it is so, it will return profits back to all of you, back to the owners of the business, and it will do it on an equitable in an equitable fashion based on how much you spend in the store. So it benefits you to use it, to shop there, to eat the delicious food that will be there, and that money will keep circulating through your community. So it will support farmers and cheesemakers and bakers, and also tradespeople who will be helping maintain the store, and of course the staff that will be there. And food co-op staff, compared to conventional grocery, they tend to stay in their positions longer, they tend to get paid better wages, and they have better access to benefits. So that's another aspect of being a cooperative, that we want to do right all the way around. And here is so there's an organization called the International Cooperative Alliance. It's the worldwide organization that protects cooperatives, in that not anybody can call themselves a cooperative. You actually have to truly be a cooperative, and they help the cooperative movement evolve with the times so that it is serving. And this is their official definition of a cooperative. And of course, I highlighted cooperative economic enterprise. That's what this really is. We are creating something that your community can use, that you will all benefit from, having this grocery store nearby, right here, and with that beautiful design that we just saw, and that carefully thought through design. We're here to meet a variety of needs, and one of those is your economic needs. And everyone, whether you have a little bit of money or a lot of money, we would all like our money to do something good while also earning us a return. And that's what these co-op capital campaigns are all about. They are ways where the co-op gets the financing it needs. All of you get the opportunity to earn some money on the interest on the loans that you will make to the co-op. And indeed, that money then gets spent to build, open, and sustain this store until it is fully financially successful on its own. It's just an exciting circle to be a part of. These are the terms for this particular campaign, and as John mentioned, these are very similar, almost identical to the terms that Fredericksburg used successfully in their campaign. So you can earn up to 6% interest. The loan minimum is only $2,000, although in order for the co-op to meet its goal, we are certainly going to need some folks to be able to loan $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, or even more dollars to the co-op. But compared to a lot of other investments, it's a pretty low initial investment. And in my experience working with these campaigns all over the country, we often see have folks who say, you know, we're a young couple just starting out. This is our first investment together. So it's a great way to get people started on the road to improving their financial health while also helping the community and keeping the money local. The 15-year term with interest paid annually and principal payback beginning in year 11 and spaced out over the years 11 through 14. And in this way, we'll raise $1.6 million, which won't be all the money needed to get the store going, but it will be a lot of it. And you can do it in a variety of ways. So you can certainly do it from your own personal funds, but also John and Julie and their team have put together systems so that if you want to create a self-directed IRA, so you can actually use some of your retirement funds without any penalty, you can use those to loan money to the co-op also. And we love it. It's always fun when we have some matching loans. So there are folks in every campaign who are ready to make some $20,000 and larger loans, but they say, you know what, we're going to hold off until you raise another $20,000 from the rest of the ownership in a short period of time. Those are super fun, super effective. And of course, if you would like to be the first match for Lovettsville Co-op, that would be great. Let John know. And that's, I just wanted to introduce the concept of the capital campaign, let you know that it's something commonly used and very successfully used all over the country. And it's an exciting part of an already exciting project. So I encourage you to think carefully about your part in this and how you can help make the Lovettsville Co-op come to fruition. I'll be around for the Q&A at the end if you have questions about this or about any other projects that relate to this, and I will hand it back to John.
Okay. So with that, Suzanne, do you have a list of the questions?
Let's see.
Nothing like putting your wife on the spot.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Actually, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's see. Patrina has asked, have you adjusted the HVAC designs post-COVID? I'm assuming that's for Gary.
Yes, correct. I asked that while he was talking about sustainability and ventilation.
Yes.
Yes, and the answer is yes. And how that is dealt with is twofold. One is to increase the air movement in the space, where typically we would have designed this space for 4 air changes an hour. We are looking at somewhere between 6 and 8 changes an hour. That's the first aspect. Second aspect is filtration in terms of the types of filters that we use in the system. So both of those things will be integrated into the project.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next, in some ways, it's a comment, but I see that it can be turned into a question here. Let me just find it. Oh, Ellen has said that the co-op will be an important community focal point and gathering place. Please consider an indoor area for people to meet for coffee or light meals, hoping that dine-in service isn't gone forever. So is there an indoor area that will be designed for inside gathering?
At this point, we are not looking at an indoor area, but we will be working with the one of the main design firms that work with co-ops around the country, and we'll look to see where it stands right now. Do we think that we will be able to go back to some sort of indoor dining area at some point in the near future. If not in the near future, then we would incorporate that into one of the expansions.
And I would note that we are seeing with other co-op projects around the country that are currently in development, the designs are changing somewhat in that now there is more flex space within the stores, and flex space would be space that's not from the get-go designed for specific purposes, but could be used for a range of purposes. Because one of the things that all the established co-ops have had to do is they've scrambled to find how to accommodate folks who are ordering online and then asking for curbside pickup. That requires new storage concepts and new ways to have to reduce the number of steps that the staff takes when somebody calls up and says, all right, I'm in spot 4. This is, you know, Mr. Jones, and I'd like to pick up my food. And we do expect that even post-pandemic, there is still going to be, you know, some people are really enjoying the curbside option, but the space that is being devoted to it is also a flex space that if the demand for that eases as the pandemic eases, we can see that becoming inside the store as a space where tables could then go, people could then eat, and co-ops are getting very creative and quite successful at creating really nice outdoor spaces that you can use pretty much year-round, so that people even now during the pandemic still have the ability to grab a bite at the co-op, meet with friends, use it as the community focal point that they certainly are.
Okay. And I think this is the last question. So if I've missed anything, folks, please retype it into the chat box. But there's a question from Ellis. How much power do you anticipate from the solar panels?
Yeah, so our current design for building A, and I'm going to say exclusively building A, is just over 20 kW. Each building will have solar panels. So I have not, my solar consultant has not given me the calculations for buildings B and C yet, but I will tell you that building A will generate a little over 20 kW.
And how much is that as a percentage of how much the building will be consuming? Do you know?
Well, I don't know the answer to that because our design is not complete. But okay. I will say that the only way that buildings become net zero is if the tenants, well, the developer, and that's me, I've already got my hand raised, I'm committed to it, but I need to work with the tenants, including you all, to make sure that we make equipment selections and make construction decisions in ways that reduce the demand for power. You cannot continue to function the way your traditional store would function. You would have more solar panels than the square footage of this entire parcel of land. It's really important to drive down demand. And I will also tell you that it's unrealistic to think that any of these buildings will reach true net zero. There's just not enough. There's just not enough land area, and the solar systems out there are just not, good enough to do that. But what we do then is we source the power. In other words, we contract for renewable energy to drive the center, where we can't provide that power from on-site sources.
And using a purpose-built building for the co-op is a great way for the co-op to be able to be as energy efficient as possible. Many new co-ops are fitting themselves into existing buildings in their community, which that can be great, but often there are some severe limitations involved with that. Whereas when you're building from scratch, every year the refrigeration equipment has been getting more efficient. As Mr. Large noted, the LED lighting, not only is it a great alternative and very low power consuming light source for the store itself, but by using LED lighting within the coolers and freezers, it reduces the heat that's generated within it, which means less power used to keep the food at the temperature it's supposed to be. Also, as a brand new grocery store, you may find that Lovettsville Co-op will have doors on most all of its freezers and coolers. So the design is changing. In the old days, you might have been able to just reach into a wide open cooler to grab your eggs. Those things are changing because it's much more energy efficient to have doors, screens, or other manners to keep the cold air where we want the cold air and not going where we don't want it. So it is really exciting to see all the energy efficiency that's being designed from the very beginning of this project.
Okay, I think there's one last question here from Ken. Will this be LEED certified or some other green certification?
No, it will not. I will tell you that my company, we're affiliated with a group called the International Living Future Institute. It is a group based in Seattle, Washington, and in our opinion, they have taken green and sustainable development to a whole nother level beyond what LEED has done. And I'm not disparaging LEED, because any effort by anyone to try to make things more sustainable, I would applaud. But LEED has a little different of a approach in that it does not require ongoing testing of the facility as it's actually being used to make sure that goals are met. And ILFI, we will be doing constant monitoring of the systems in these buildings to make sure that we're hitting the mark, and if we're not, why aren't we hitting the mark, and get to the bottom of that. But ILFI is a great group, and I would encourage anyone that's interested to go on their website. They have an amazing website that talks about sustainable development, and we will be incorporating as much as we possibly can into this project. And by the way, to that end, we've engaged ILFI. They're coming from Seattle to do we have a charrette that they do with all of our consultants, all of our designers, where we specifically roll up our sleeves and look at this project to make sure that we're integrating as many of the ILFI concepts as we can. So it was about a $10,000 expense, but we felt like it was worth it to make sure we're hitting the mark on and getting this project where we want it to be. But I don't think anybody's interested in paying $50,000, $60,000 so that we can put a plaque on the wall. I'm more about, let's make sure it performs.
Great. That's the last of the questions I see. Thanks so much.
Okay, so
We ready for door prizes?
yes, I just want to thank everybody for their questions. And so, Suzanne, do you have identified who gets the door prize besides me?
Okay. Yes, I've got, let me see. I don't know if people can see me, but Eleanor, is that Eleanor Meredith? I'm not sure. Wins the original lino cut hand colored print by a printmaker named Suzanne Desai.
Wow.
And we have Lori Kimball. Lori Kimball has won the cookbook, and this is also by a co-op member who's not with us tonight, but I know she's a member. Christine, I think it's Luca Chu. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I have a copy of this, and it's a terrific cookbook. And last one is Richard Etham, if he's still on with us. The book, oh, it's showing backwards, isn't it?
Nope, looks good.
Is it good?
That's
Okay.
good. Good.
This is, unfortunately, it was posthumously published. She was an amazing person. Jean Carlson, who was a former co-op chair, or co-op chair before, I guess a couple chairs before John. So, but it is an engaging, wonderful story of her life with her husband in Alaska. Oh, those are the three. Cheers.
Well, congratulations to all the door prize winners. And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I'm sorry about the little confusion at the beginning. Eventually, I'll get this down. And Gary, thank you so much for your presentation. That was very, very helpful. And Ben, as usual, thank you so much for helping us out in explaining the capital campaign. So Julie, do you have anything to add?
No, just thank you to everyone for joining. It's been our pleasure to host you, and we will see you in Lovettsville.
That we will.
And
Thank you,
hopefully some
everybody.
pie next year.
Right, sometime, exactly.
Thank you. They were amazing presentations.
Yeah, it was good.
Thanks,
It was very
everybody.
good. All right,
you.
remember to
Thank
save
you.
it, John.
Yep.
Are we doing?
Thank you all.
No, here's Craig Horner. Bye.
Bye.